I'm a single guy in my early 30s with a 29-year-old brother named Jake who already has 4 kids. He had his first at 22, second a year later, third 2 years after that, and the fourth was born just a few months ago. His wife Madison and I absolutely cannot stand each other. She's one of those people who acts superior to get a rise out of you, then instantly turns into a victim if you dare respond. She can cry on command and put on the most convincing show to get sympathy from anyone. My parents and Jake absolutely worship her, even though they know exactly how manipulative she is. Madison refuses to get any job despite having a college degree, and my mom willingly babysits all day. Their finances depend entirely on Jake, which means they can't afford to live anywhere except my parent house. Privacy is non-existent with all of them crammed into a 3-bedroom ranch house built in the 1960s. Growing up, Jake was clearly the favorite child. We're 3 years apart, but he developed a massive superiority complex because I was severely punished whenever I stood up to his bullying. My parents gave him the lion's share of everything unless other family members called him out, which happened often enough that my parents packed us up and moved 150 miles away from extended family. Jake physically abused me multiple times, relentlessly flirted with my first girlfriend until she broke up with me, and laughed at every misfortune I had. My parents told me to suck it up whenever I complained. I only got equal treatment when other people were around to witness it. When I turned 18, I moved out before even finishing high school. Couch surfing was better than living with them. They didn't even show up to my graduation. The recent pandemic destroyed my life. I lost my job and couldn't renew my lease because my roommate also lost his job. Neither of us could afford the 2-bedroom condo on unemployment. As the lease ended, my roommate left early to move back with relatives. I had to sell almost everything because I was about to be homeless. I shouldn't have been living somewhere so expensive, but I loved the high life until it abandoned me. I owned a truck simply because I've always loved trucks, so I found an affordable camper in good condition and put it on my truck. It was supposed to be temporary, but I ended up living in it far longer than expected. I originally hoped to park the camper at my parents' house where Jake's family still lived, but when I asked, they said the house was full and they didn't want me there. They'd only let me park if I paid them basically apartment rent, way too much for someone jobless trying to save unemployment money. My parents called my camper an eyesore and told me to take a hike. Madison thought it was hilarious that I had to live in a camper. Jake joined her in pointing and mocking me, calling me a homeless bum. I parked in a store parking lot that first night, scared out of my mind that someone might break in. Finding stable parking was incredibly difficult. I dealt with everything from beggars and drug addicts to people demanding I leave because my camper was an eyesore. To keep electricity, I learned to use long extension cords, sneaking around to plug into random building outlets while parked on streets. I know it's wrong, but I had to keep my batteries charged so my refrigerator would stay cold. After months of this nightmare, I finally got a new job in the neighboring city. I practically lived in the back lot of my workplace, old employee parking spaces that were borderline forgotten. My boss actually liked this arrangement because I was available for any shift. He let me take the camper off my truck and set it up permanently, and even let me plug into the building for power and water. I paid small rent by working free Sundays. I showered at friends' apartments or the local gym since the camper only had a portable toilet. Eventually, I got promoted to supervisor with a better salary than my old job. That's when I decided I needed a house. The scare from losing my condo made me realize I needed something stable long-term. Just 2 miles from work, I found a 3-bedroom manufactured home on a small property. I got it for $10,000 less than asking price, used nearly my entire savings for the down payment, and got approved for a home loan. I was dumb enough to brag about it on Facebook. My family saw the post, and that's where this nightmare really begins. A few weeks later, my parents, Jake, and his family showed up completely unannounced for a tour of my home. I never gave them my address, so I still don't know how they found me. They practically shoved their way in like tourists and made themselves at home. My parents kept talking about how I had so much extra space, and it was too much for someone with no wife or kids. Jake kept remarking how there was more space than our parents' house, and it was closer to his job. Red flags everywhere. Eventually, Jake asked to speak privately. Everyone else suddenly left for the front porch. Clearly, they'd planned this. Jake said the house was too much for me alone, and I should let him move in with his family since Madison was pregnant with another child. He pointed out I already had the camper, so I could just live outside while they took the main house. He never once mentioned paying rent. He started talking about changes and curfews and how I couldn't just walk in without prior notice. If it weren't my brother, I think he'd lost his mind. I tried to speak, but he kept talking over me like I had no say. I picked up my phone and started recording. Jake didn't care and kept waving his arms around, explaining why he needed my house and acting like it was a done deal and trying to shake my hand. That's when I finally showed my backbone and said hello loud enough that Jake stumbled backward. I'd rarely raised my voice to him because our parents always punished me for it, but this was my house. I stood up and told him my house wasn't up for grabs and that acting like I'd let him move in just because they wanted it wouldn't make it happen. I bought my house for me, and it wasn't my fault he kept having kids and couldn't afford to move out. Jake got as physically close as possible without touching me and said I didn't deserve the house and he needed a better place for his family. I laughed and said that was total bullshit. I work hard to buy my house, so of course I deserved it. Jake started yelling that I have no wife or kids and don't need all the space, so I should give it to him. I said I wasn't giving him anything, especially since he never offered to pay rent. I'd still be covering the entire mortgage without even living in my own house. Jake said he shouldn't have to pay rent because his family comes first, and our parents said I was going to do this. I yelled that their word wasn't law, and they had no right to give away in my house. Right on cue, my parents and Madison barged back through the front door and surrounded me, trying to force me to agree. Madison screamed loudest about how she was pregnant, and I can't do this to her. I said I did nothing to her. She just assumed she could take from me like I'd allow it. I had no obligation to her or her family. Then I called her a stuck-up bitch who never had respect for me, so I don't care what she thinks or how many kids she has. That made her angry enough to attack me. She got one good hit on my face and tried to do more, but Jake held her back. She kept demanding he let her go so she could scratch my eyes out. I held up my phone showing I'd recorded everything and said I'd call police if they didn't leave immediately. My parents said they were leaving. Then my mother said I had a week to come to my senses. I told her I wouldn't be and to not come back. I told Madison my phone recorded everything, and if she tried anything, I'd press assault charges. She screamed and stormed out crying dramatically. After kicking them out, I immediately went to social media and told the story to the whole extended family. It spread fast, but you won't find it now because it all got deleted and I put my profile on private. I posted because I knew they'd try to twist events to make me the villain, and I was right. But I had about an hour head start in video evidence. Being preemptive worked because I got many family members on my side right away. My parents, Jake and Madison, had a few supporters, but not many. Plenty of others already knew how entitled they were, so what happened was quickly understood and accepted. The week went by and my parents showed up with Jake at my front porch just like they threatened. They rang my doorbell like crazy and pounded on the door until I answered. I opened it just a crack. I'd installed latch chains that prevented them from shoving in again. I braced my body against the door for good measure. My father and Jake demanded I let them in, but I said I was recording everything and would call police if they tried to force entry again. My mother calmed them down and asked in her most sickly sweet tone if I was ready to let my brother move in. I told them all to fuck off and never come back. My mother put on crocodile tears asking why. I can't just do this for Jake because he's my beloved brother. I laughed and bluntly said I do not love him as a brother because he treated me like shit for years and they only encouraged it. They are terrible parents and he's a terrible brother. I told him to leave or I'd call police ASAP. They left surprisingly easily apart from my mother's loud crying and dirty looks. I thought the whole mess was over, but I should have taken them more seriously. I came home one Friday evening to find a moving truck and Jake's minivan in my driveway. They were moving stuff in. Jake waved with a smug grin when he saw me. I was furious and told him to stop, but Madison smugly said they were moving in whether I liked it or not. In the most fake way, tilting her head and puckering her lips, she said it's okay because your mommy allowed it, and you should always listen to what your mommy tells you. I was seething with rage just hearing those words and looking at her smug face. I locked myself in my truck to call 911 immediately. When they realized what I was doing, Madison started pounding on my window, yelling at me to stop, crying, "Why can't you just do this for Jake?" I responded by saying this is my damn house. She threatened to key my truck unless I stopped calling police, all of which the emergency operator heard thanks to my slightly open window. I told Madison if she damaged my truck I'd sue her, and she was smart enough to retreat. When police arrived, Jake, Madison, and their kids had locked themselves in my house. I showed the cops what happened and my driver's license with my current address. When we got to my front door, I saw they'd changed the lock. The old lock was on the porch with the center drilled out, and the drill they used was lying right next to it with a complete drill bit set. Could that have been any more stupid leaving evidence like that? My parents showed up while I was talking to cops and immediately lied, saying I'd agreed to rent my house to Jake's family. I said that was easily provable false. Jake and Madison finally came out with papers in hand, looking super smug like they'd outsmarted me. They'd actually drawn up and printed a fake rental agreement, but my signature wasn't on it. There was a signature, but it looked nothing like my handwriting. I told them that was stupidly blatant fraud, and if cops investigated, they'd easily figure it out. Going to jail wouldn't do them any good. It could make Jake lose his job, his only means of providing for his family. I also said I'd get a lawyer and sue for damages if anything was stolen or broken, and I'd call CPS for good measure. Jake went white and looked scared, but my mother doubled down about how I should just do this for Jake and live in the damn camper. I yelled at her that if she thought it was such a good idea, they could do it for Jake and let him have her house instead. The cops separated my mother from me. I said I wanted them all out immediately, or I'd press charges. I shouted about how they drilled out my lock to break in. The lease papers were obvious fakes with badly forged signatures, and I had recorded video of Madison attacking me, all serious crimes I could destroy their lives with if I wanted. The only reason I hadn't already was for the sake of Jake's kids, so they had one chance to leave immediately. I think it finally clicked for my parents that they couldn't force me. My mother surrendered and said she put an end to this. Madison instantly started loudly crying and ripping up the fake rental papers into tiny bits, tossing them like confetti, only for an officer to tell her to pick up the paper bits or be cited for littering. Both cops had expressions that clearly said they don't get paid enough for this drama. Jake had to tell his kids to load stuff back into the moving truck. The kids were all crying, and the eldest was sobbing that he wouldn't get his own room now. Madison and Jake gathered their kids for one last pathetic guilt attempt, the sad family routine where they all group hug while facing one direction. I swear they practiced it beforehand. All the kids had the same pleading look with quivering mouths. Madison kept rubbing her pregnant belly and tilting her head like a sad puppy, and Jake made the saddest face possible. "Please don't do this. We need to be able to live here," Jake said. But I didn't falter and told them to keep packing. All the kids and Madison turned the crying up dramatically, and Jake yelled, "Are you satisfied with yourself? You've denied us a home because you're too selfish to share and help out family." I ended up laughing like a maniac and retorted that what he was trying to do was taking, not sharing, and no amount of crying would make me let his family move in because he's no brother of mine anymore, just an entitled prick who thinks he could take whatever he wants like when we were kids. Jake started using profanity at me until cops told him to cool it or he'd be in handcuffs. He looked afraid and supremely angry. I asked the cops to stick around until everyone left, and they said they had no intention of going anywhere until resolved. In fact, more patrol cars arrived, making it several cops total. I made Jake give me the keys to the new lock he'd installed, though I got another lock the next day anyway. He was really reluctant. Then instead of handing them to me, he threw them down the street into a storm drain, saying, "Go get them yourself." One cop scolded him and made him retrieve them. He had to pull the grate off and got pretty dirty in the process. When he got the keys back, he grumbled and slammed them into my hand. I told them all to leave and never come back. My mother said I'd be disowned as if that were some threat. I sarcastically said, "Oh no, that means I won't get to come to holidays where I always get treated badly anyway, because Jake has always been your obvious favorite." I continued, "You treated me so badly growing up that if Jake ever needs an organ donor, I wouldn't give him anything. So do what you always told me when I was mistreated. Suck it up." My parents were floored, and the four cops looked pretty judgmental at them too. If you want to put nasty parents on the spot, confront them in front of cops because they won't try anything really stupid. My mother started crying and walking away. My father stood there looking like he wanted to hit me. Jake just held his kids in defeat, and Madison was having a tantrum on my front lawn. While they packed, my mother kept saying it wasn't too late and I could still do it for Jake, trying more and more bargaining. She said Jake could pay rent, and when that didn't work, she said I could move back with them so Jake could rent my house. I told her to shut up and keep packing because I don't want Jake or his family around, don't want his money, and certainly don't want to live with any of them ever again after how they treated me as a kid. Madison had another tantrum after hearing that, threw a box down, and sat on the ground for a pity party because she didn't want to go back to sharing a house with my parents. Before they left, I laid into my parents one last time about all the shit they put me through growing up. With four cops right there, they couldn't do much but stand and take it. I called them out on everything and pointed out how they couldn't do something nice like letting me stay with my camper when I was homeless, but wanted to kick me out of my own house so Jake could stay free. I put them on the spot and asked what I ever did besides being born to deserve being treated so badly, because when I finally have success, they want to snatch it away for their favorite child. I got no answers. They just stood looking like fish out of water. I continued ranting about what made them think they were such good parents after all that. My father was beet red from embarrassment, and my mother was crying that she was a horrible person. I bluntly agreed that she is a horrible person. They all are, and I bet they'll go to hell for it too. As soon as they were gone, I got back online and spilled what happened. My parents were too embarrassed to defend their actions this time. While family was somewhat split before, it was now a landslide in my favor. Nearly all families sided with me, and those who didn't simply stayed neutral. Many who I expected wouldn't side with me did, including former supporters of my parents. I offered to host half the family at Christmas Eve in my new house. My parents were not invited. I wasn't blocked on Jake and Madison's profiles, surprisingly, and saw Madison had her fourth baby in early November. They're still living with my parents. Madison kept making passive-aggressive posts about not having enough space, probably to guilt me. I'm sure it's driving my parents up the wall, having no peace with three rowdy kids, an unstable Madison, my golden child brother, and a newborn all at once. Maybe they could move into a camper in their own backyard and let Jake take over completely. They could do that for Jake.